Act 2 is finally over. For real this time. I promise. There is definitely no event that shall primarily focus on an Act 2 story following this. You can now breathe easy because Act 3 is close at hand. I'm certain that you, Act 2 non-believers, will feel differently about that storyline. For all us true story enjoyers though, we have one more feast to enjoy. A vignette, another short story event. Unfortunately, a new integrated strategy doesn't follow this one. This story somewhat jumps around a bit with the timeline of events. Nothing major, but worth noting if you think I'm being a bit schizophrenic with the transitions later. Alas, the event is worth discussing nonetheless, even if I am a little late. Maybe even later because I started playing more Uma. Finally got that A rank gold ship run. So for the sake of completion, I'll run us through what we need from Act 2, and I'm going to be living up to that badly explained title for this one. Starting off around 30 years before the crisis proper, with the event that would set the whole thing in motion. The Draco royal line was cut down. The parents of Reed and Ablana were killed, forcing the two sisters into hiding. This would eventually lead to the foundation of the Tara liberation movement in the form of Dublin. Shortly after that, the Dukes led a coup in Victoria proper, which would lead to the death of King Alistair. This would cause the royal line of the Aslan to be forced into hiding. Although Siege didn't have the same desire for revenge as the Draco sisters, and found her home in the streets of Londinium. Following the effective destruction of both sides of Victoria's royal houses, Victoria's dukes took control of the country and fucked everything up. Always remember, the dukes deserve nothing, except the guillotine. Castor can still get it though. Finally, the Sarkaz were cosplaying Captain America Civil War. By that I mean they were brutally killing each other over whether Teresa or Teresis was the base choice. The Victoria crisis proper would start after the Sarkaz were led by Arknights premier or former Teresis into the capital of Victoria. During this process, Teresis would put an end to both the Sarkaz civil war and secure his position as the ruling body within Londinium. He would have Beskol assassinated and would destroy the Steam Knights in an ambush. Following a little bit of revolution in Ursus and stoking rebellion with Tara, the stage was set for Rhodes Island to enter the crisis. Siege would acquire the size of kings and lead the people of Londinium against the Sarkaz to liberate their city. Amiens meanwhile fought against the Sarkaz in order to continue the will of Teresa, ultimately culminating in Amiens facing off against a reborn Teresa in a battle to decide if the Dream of Babel could actually survive on Terra. W, now Wizardel, then announced the end of the war, which in combination with Teresa's second death and the actions of Siege forced the Sarkaz to retreat from the battlefield to the walls of Londinium, which is where this event picks up. If you know anything about Siege's event, then you might realize that this event takes place before that one. Kind of a strange way to do things, but I imagine they thought Vina was a better unit to bait people before Lapland Altar. And so our event opens on the stalemate following the Sarkaz retreating into Londinium. My beautiful dragon Reed has been camping out with her followers in the area around Londinium. Not wanting her non-combatant followers or the injured soldiers she has picked up to follow her and suffer from the war, Reed decides to advance towards the battlefield on her own. Despite worrying her friends, Reed knows that this is the only option available to her. Reed intends to meet with her sister Ablana to force her into breaking the current stalemate. While crossing the battlefield, Reed spends her time healing wounded soldiers, Victorian and Sarkaz alike, drawing the attention of both sides of the war. Unable to gauge her allegiance, the other factions view her as a threat, truly embodying the Irish spirit of neutrality. The Brigadier, one of the higher-ranking members of Dublin, orders his men to eliminate anyone who threatens Reed and to escort her aboard the Gastrel. Although she wishes to meet Ablana, only Wellington awaits Reed upon her arrival. Reed wants the forces of Tara to bring peace to the land. A meaningless siege will do nothing but prolong the suffering of the citizens within Londinium. Wellington agrees with her. This is a noble sentiment and one worthy of one who can rule over Tara. The worthless Dukes of Victoria view the situation as beneficial to their aims, so have done nothing so far. Reed pleads with him to mobilize the forces of Tara to defend the people and break the siege. Wellington refuses. Eblana has set things in motion to force Reed to action. So Reed takes on the mantle of leader again and orders Wellington to shatter the Sarkaz lines and bring relief to Londinium. Wellington, of course, obeys. Reed then leaves the ship to reunite with her followers, promising to bring her people to the capital of Tara, Nasioshi. Not really a word often said in Irish, but the Guinness factory is in the area the name is taken from, so we better get Arknights Guinness. More importantly, after Reed has fully tied herself to Tara as the one who liberated Londinium, Eblana decides it's time to reform. Placing herself at the front of Reed's offensive, Eblana faces off with Nez Salem. The two veteran reformers square off with the other so that Eblana may display the power of Tara. And speaking of veteran reformers, Talulah and Chen reunited during the liberation of Londinium and are together discussing the future of the Union with Nine. Nine is technically the leader, even if Talulah is the figurehead. They are currently taking shelter within a factory protected by the Exemplars. Tensions between the infected, Sarkaz, and Victorian soldiers are high, and time is running short. Nine has allowed any outcast into their group, and protecting Sarkaz citizens is making enemies. The Duke's soldiers are taking Sarkaz citizens away, likely to make them disappear. Nine insists on helping them, and before things can get too hot between the two factions, Talulah heats up the air to scare the soldiers away. Talk about coughing babies versus a nuclear bomb matchup for those soldiers. Talulah concludes that it's only a matter of time before anti-Sarkaz hatred turns to anti-infected hatred. Fighting with the soldiers over it won't help matters either. Nonetheless, Nine refuses to abandon any outcasts and tasks Talulah with defending their camp. Chen warns Nine about antagonizing the Victorians, but Nine dismisses her concerns, saying her time in Rhodes Island has made her forget the suffering of the infected. Kinda wild thing to say, but she is voicing the opinion of some Arknights fans. Later, Nine stops the Victorian from executing Sarkaz civilians, and is stopped by Chen before she can kill the soldier. They continue to argue about who's right, but Talulah steps in to put a stop to it after Chen draws her sword. She knew Nine was about to get low-diffed. Instead, Talulah lays out the facts of the situation. Things aren't working in Londinium, and if they keep going this way, they'll only get worse. So they should leave. Nine accuses Talulah of ordering her around, but Talulah tells her she's just offering her opinion. Make no mistake though, Talulah is effectively in charge right now, even if Nine is living in denial. Reunion shall return to Ursus. Throughout this section, there have been little snippets of those within Ursus who have taken up the cause of reunion, tending the embers left behind by Talulah. The infected are beginning to revolt, so reunion should return to its roots. Talulah intends to right her wrongs, and there is no better place to do that than Ursus. Talulah playable soon, trust. Or at least 9 as a consolation prize. Or dripped out Chen alter. No great transition here, except for Nowell, I guess. Jumping back a bit from the time of the reunion stuff, Nowell is traveling through Londinium during the chaos caused by the battle between the Sarkaz and the Exemplars. A panicked family is rushing through the streets, seeking safety, when they run into Nowell. He is searching for the shadow within Londinium, the thing that cursed him with immortality. Nowell, despite being on what he views as an important mission, can't abandon the family and leads them to the Exemplar's base, where they will be safe. Along the way, he runs into the unicorn Clovisa. She is also aiding in evacuation works and brings Nowell to the Exemplar's safe zone. Here, Nowell decides that the most important thing to do is aid fully in the evacuations. Taking advantage of the fact he can't die, he walks through battlefields looking for survivors and then escorts them to safety. Upon returning after one fateful run, he intends to meet up with Clovisa. While searching for her, the mother of that family he originally helped runs up to him begging for more help. Her son had disappeared. Suspiciously, right after that, Clovisa appears carrying the young boy. Then an explosion goes off, collapsing the ground beneath them. Not ideal. Nowell, of course, goes into the wreckage looking for them. Venturing underground, he discovers Clovisa. seemingly killed. And by seemingly, I mean definitely, as half her body is buried in rubble. Luckily, the child is okay, so he intends to return for Clovis later. Just as he's about to leave, aftershocks cause rubble to fall, which forces him to shield the kid. As things are going back to normal, a mist envelops Nowell. The ageless unicorn has appeared. Not quite before Nowell, as they are missed right now, but speaking to him, asking how he has enjoyed their gift of immortality. This blessing, as the unicorn calls it, is Nowell's curse, and he tells them as much. The unicorn wishes to make it up to Nowell, and tempts him with a wish. Nowell, however, rejects it. 0 for 2 on wishes granted recently by Unicorn. Nowell, having passed the same test of character Vina would later pass, exits the ruins, where upon returning the boy he would collapse. He's bleeding. No longer is his body immortal. Realizing that Clovisa was the unicorn he was searching for brings him closure. So he puts away his grudge and decides to focus on helping others. Nowell truly was blessed with a big heart. And by that I mean chest. Just look at those things. Make sure to ask Uriel about them next time she's streaming. Moving on from sexualizing someone's chest to sexualizing someone's thighs. Entelekia. Unironically, might have to make a thigh video in the same vein as Plus's boob video because this is insane work. Or at least force Plus to make a thigh video that I can cameo in. Moving on from the gooning though, this section introduces us to a vampire that showed up briefly in Siege Altar's event. No longer satisfied with being a mysterious background character, Entelekia has decided to be a mysterious side character instead. Operating as an agent of a mysterious vampire organization known as Rose Riverside, Entelekia meets with Calcit. She had remained neutral in the conflict with the Kazdel military commission until this point, but matters involving a vampire known as the Princess had forced her into action. Although Rose Riverside is technically no longer active, another member, Smorty, had tipped Entelekia off to the Princess being in Londinium. Skipping over the flashback about Milton, cause even though his design is nice, it's not relevant, Entelekia agrees to help Rhodes Island out by eliminating the remnants of the Sanguinarch's power. Entelekia, as part of this mission, ends up infiltrating the Military Commission's command center. While there, Smorty receives word of a group of mercenaries who are rapidly approaching the command center. Deciding to lend a hand, Entelekia dispatches most of the forces that are waiting for them. It doesn't happen in this event, but during her destruction of the Sanguinarch's altars, Entelekia would end up meeting with Allodale and have her speed up her mission by providing aid. Having completed her mission, Calcit provides Entelekia with the princess's whereabouts. Around that time, she lost contact with Smorty, but considering that she may meet their leader, Entelekia follows her new lead. Eventually, her mission would lead her to a trail of dried blood, Smorty's corpse. The blood still fresh despite the time that had passed since her death. Using her ability to read memories within blood, Entelekia tries to find clues to the location of the princess. Ultimately, her efforts were fruitless, and all that remains is a crystal drop of blood, left behind by the princess in the blood of Smorty. Whether the princess was responsible for her death or merely stumbled upon it following her passing is left ambiguous, but Entelekia believes it is her way of saying goodbye. She later returns to Calcit. None within Londinium know of the princess's location, and so Entelekia will leave. She will continue her search elsewhere. And so shall we, but we are not searching for a princess, we are on the hunt for a potential fraud. Although not the sole focus of the section, this one does tackle the death of the Sarkaz war god, Nezala. I would like to say that this is the most important section, but it isn't. But this one is definitely the most densely packed, featuring all of the following characters: Paprika, Enos, Hodera, Wizardel, Delphine, Morgan, Indra, Dagda, Vina, Horn, Amia, Logos, Calcit, Bagpipe, Nowell, Nightingale, Shining, Fang, Katrin, Stainless, Eblana, Atrilbiasher, Shearer, and Nezsalam, and Closure, and Teresa, and Manfred, and Misery, and Eleanor the Duke of Borch, and Wellington. Basically the entire cast of the Victoria Crisis. So instead of padding this section anymore, I should just talk about it. Opening on the Mausoleum of Kings, Paprika mourns the Steam Knights, forgotten by Victoria. Lifebone has taken residence there, as it is the safest place for it currently. Holderer informs Wizardel and Enos that Lifebone is still stable enough to make the return journey to Kazdel, but they shouldn't push it too far. Nez Salem is making the Sarkaz's final stand at the palace, so Wizardel suggests taking over the command center. Moving out, the group is confronted by a Trilby Asher. Not the cool one, Mr. Bellingham though, so he's a bum. Before Wizardel bombs the Victorians confronting them, Delphine appears to defuse the situation. This allows the Mercs to freely travel to the Kazdel Military Commission's command center. After reaching the command center, they are surprised at the lack of resistance, likely due to the Entelekia-sized hole in the defenses. Taking over the command center, Wizardel broadcasts that Babel has taken it over before blowing the thing up, cutting off Nez Salem from remaining Sarkaz forces. Unperturbed, Nez Salem continues his battle with the Exemplars at Rhodes Island. Deploying the full might of his forces, Nez Salem brings the Exemplars' advance to a halt, using a decaying fog. Amia and Logos find themselves unable to lift the fog, which has begun corroding the Exemplars' weapons and disrupting their communication. During the battle, the followers evacuate wounded soldiers from the fighting. I have to mention them because I am required to, as I am under contract as an Nullsuit. Closure manages to restore communication, which swings things back in the Exemplar's favor. Then the Steam Knight and Catherine's Crawler enter the battle to bolster their might even further. As the fog of war weakens, Nez Salem appears before Amia. Having already freed the Sarkaz from their ancestral hate, Nez Salem wishes to continue this battle for his own sake, allowing Amia to pass him so that she may confront Teresa's. Logo stays behind to finish dispersing the fog, and Amia enters the palace to find Teresa's. Logos and Nez Salem once again clash on the battlefield. As this has been happening, the Size of Kings, which had been handed off by Siege, makes its way to Nez Salem. As the Steam Knight knocks Nez Salem to the ground, the blade stabs into him for the first time. Nez Salem thinks back on Teresa following this. When the Kazdel Military Commission was founded, the Royal Twins promised him the final war of his life. Although Teresa was never able to tell him how he would die, Nez Salem advanced regardless. Now, after the Sarkaz can finally choose their fate, Nez Salem is able to fight a war to its conclusion. And as the sun rises and the fog disperses, Logos' bone whistle plays to mourn the fallen. Nez Salem at last rests. While war may yet again come for the Sarkaz, his is over. I really wish we got a CG of his passing in this event, cause I seriously doubt we'll ever properly see him again. Except in a potential future flashback, or if Kalasia is cooking something up in her lab. By the way, in case you were wondering, no, Nez Salem is not a fraud. I just wanted a transition. And speaking of transitions, the Sarkaz's transition back to Kazdel. Yeah, I am incredible at this whole scripting thing. Wizardel is in charge of leading the mass exodus from Victoria and doing a surprisingly good job. Other nations are nervous with the Sarkaz force on the move. However, communications are jammed by the approaching catastrophe generated by the First Originium. With its power, the Sarkaz show Terra the might they now hold. Catastrophe clouds are hovering above many of Terra's capitals, within Columbia, Lithuania, Casimiras, Ursus, and Laterano, to name a few. The Sarkaz are making sure everyone knows what will happen should Kazdel be attacked again. Wizardel is very pleased at the thought of destroying the other nations' capitals. Manfred tells her that it would be a terrible idea, being the voice of reason, which is most certainly needed. Currently, Terra has no idea of the strain using it puts on one's body, so using it frivolously won't help them. Wizardel is annoyed that the man who is effectively a prisoner is telling her this, reminding Manfred that he's only still around because the Sarkaz still need the military commission. Much like keeping the military commission around, using the First Originium is a necessary evil. During the Sarkaz's exit of Victoria, a Liberi man, Parayakaka, is dropped off in the wilderness by Sarkaz and Mafia goons. He's concerned about the catastrophe clouds hovering over the Sarkaz, but decides he wants to check it out regardless. He is then pretty much immediately caught by Wizardel's mercenaries. He claims he is just studying the catastrophe clouds, but this is dismissed as he seemingly has an ability to repel catastrophes. Paria warns Wizardel about an approaching fleet of warships which have positioned themselves in front of the Sarkaz's pact. Before fighting breaks out though, Amia steps in. creating a huge wall using her ults, separating the Sarkaz from the warships. She doesn't know who the warships belong to, but she won't allow anyone to prevent the Sarkaz from going home. This is Amiya's first truly public act using the powers of the Sarkaz King. Many within the Sarkaz watching on are confused by the sudden appearance of an outblood king. Many question whether they should offer tribute. Others question if this new king intends to lead them into battle again. Amiya herself rejects the title. The power is simply something left behind for her by Teresa, and so she uses it to defend the Sarkaz. After witnessing her display of strength, the unknown warships slowly but surely change the direction they're traveling. She is devoted disaster, but suddenly hears a voice, asking her who she is. The Laterano Pope had sensed a disturbance in the law. The supercomputer had connected to something similar to itself. Unsure of what or who it was, the Pope decides to ask who the person is. So Amiya and the Pope discuss whether Terra is ready to let go of hate and give peace a try. The Pope is not sure, but warns Amiya that a great threat looms on the horizon. Suspiciously cutting away from the duo and showing us Teresa's. He has entered the assimilated universe housed within Originium. Although he is too late to see Teresa again, he nonetheless follows her footsteps. Having fulfilled his mission of freeing the Sarkaz from that which limited them, he now turns his attention to aura-forming his way up to Terra's next great threat. And that, my friends, is See You Soon. A very nice series of stories wrapping up some of the leftover plot threads from the Victoria Crisis. Or, if not wrapping them up, pushing them to the point where a new story can take over. I'm going to be real with you, I don't think Nowell is getting an event focused on him again. And Telekium might also be gone for a while, depending on whether they want to open the vampire-shaped can of worms that they have created. Closure potentially playable in that storyline though, so I wouldn't be against it. Reed and Nablana are most certainly going to be addressed again. I know this due to the power of foresight that I've been blessed with by the Chinese Arknights server, and using that power allows me to know that we shall be going further down this path mentioned by the Pope. I don't want to spoil stuff on that front, so you're going to have to wait and see till those events release on Global before I talk about them. My only real complaint with this event is that Allodale didn't show up. Gull, we know you are active right now, please put on a show for us. I want to cope about you being playable one day. Also, they didn't give the Glasgow gang any real focus. I suppose they did cover everything they wanted you to see in the Siege event, but I don't think it would have been a bad thing to show them, helping civilians or fighting Sarkaz again. Pushing all of that aside though, baby girl, my daughter Amiya, locked the fuck in this event. She's perfect. I'm really excited to see where they take her character in the future, because she's clearly, stepping into her own as a leader, not just hiding behind the shadow of Teresa or the Doctor, and I'm very excited to see what they do with her going forward. I'm certain she's going to have setbacks, and I'm certain she's going to struggle, but she will most certainly become a king worthy of the Sarkaz, and potentially all of Terra. Hopefully not in the same way IS-5 showed us, but hopefully in a way that benefits all of those who call Terra their home. Also, my glorious gold aura forming at the end. He can't keep getting away with this. It's outrageous. He didn't even say anything in this event. He literally just showed up to aura form at the last second. And I do mean that. It's at the very end of the last section. He just appears. He locks in, making sure you got one last glorious look at him before the event ends. It's outrageous. True aura forming gold activity. Also, because I just want to talk about him, Nez Salem. He's really, really cool, and I'm kinda glad that they gave him even more focus for the send-off. I, for one, was happy with what we got during the Siege event. I know it wasn't everyone's cup of tea, and if this certain person is listening, I know he's going to complain about it even now anyway. I personally think it was really good to send him off in this manner. Even though he obviously wasn't trying to die, he wanted this to be his last war, and so was going to stay here well past the point that any sound person would have retreated. It's really good character stuff. I didn't mention it because it wasn't super relevant, but during the fighting he takes time out of his battle to go and tell a soldier working for him that it's not his time to die and that he should flee the battlefield. It wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign that he hadn't found his war, and that this wasn't his war to die in. I thought it was just really good stuff to give this more grandfatherly feeling to Nez Salem, as we know he has raised much of the Sarkaz's greatest warriors. We know he has this reason, this kindling inside of him that makes him want to see the full potential of those who he raises. And in this case, he had already seen his and wanted to finally step off the stage, potentially to allow someone like Talulah to take over his mantle as the Lord of War for the Sarkaz. Only time will tell, and potentially he might be the first villain I decide to fully focus on with a dedicated video from Act 2. Except maybe Teresa's, but I can't call my goat a villain because he's a goat. With all that being said, I am going to end it here. I have already delayed this video enough, and it's going to be even later than I intended it to be. It was meant to come out, for reference, on Wednesday, the 20th of August. Unfortunately, real life got in the way, so yeah, I can't say anything, just real life got in the way. Shout out to the wonderful members of The Factory. You are the delayed video to my See You Soon event. We might not get there on time, but we will get there in the end. Y'all be good people, and I will talk to you in the next one. Make the tie video plus, make the tie video. Get all commissioned of Entelechia's enormous ties and plaster them on everyone's screen so that everyone has to recognize her for the thigh goddess that she is.